Bobby Butler. And just like that, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Clayton. Good to see you this morning.
Good seeing you. Before we jump into too much, I just need to make sure everybody understands that Bobby and I have spent the last 10 minutes solving the world's problems. Have we not?
We've been doing our best, man. Put it this way: we're willing to play our part.
I felt like we ought to send the offering plate around after that conversation. I met you going on 10 years ago or so, back when you and Buddy Curry and Robert Moore, y'all brought Kids and Pros football here to Chattanooga. Yes. I started helping doing the marketing, and some years I directed, and some years I unpacked ice. I did different things. But I got to know you, and it was fun because, I got to watch you also play on Sundays in the 80s.
Okay. You're telling your age, man. You're telling your age.
Well, it wasn't that you were that much older than me. I think so. When did you graduate high school?
1977.
Yeah. So you're only 9 years older than me.
Only 9 years.
Only 9 years. And the older I get, the younger my age is, right?
Yeah, we get closer and closer as we age, man.
Well, I went from actually saying how old I am to I'm in my 50s. That's what I say now.
There you go.
I'm in my 50s. All right, so let's start it this way, because I know I want to get some stories out of you and share some feedback on some questions I've got. But walk everybody through where you went to high school.
Okay.
And then what got you to Florida State University, FSU? Because I got some friends that are big FSU fans.
All right. Well, it's a crazy story. I was recruited by pretty much everybody in the nation. But here's the thing: I had some hidden things about me that, had I played today, I probably would have only got a chance to play at Division II school. I was a quarterback in high school in Delray Beach. Played high school football at a school called Atlantic High School. And we have a lot of great football players come out of that school. And so I played quarterback and I played safety in high school. Back then, your best athletes played both ways. And so I was a pretty good quarterback. And, I always dreamed of, playing college ball and playing the next level on the offensive side of football. But, we lived in a different era.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get many opportunities to play quarterback. But everybody in the country recruited me to play corner, simply because my senior year in high school, Clint, I had 7 interceptions, 6 for touchdowns. And so, if I catch it, I'm gone. Right? And so, but it was so easy for me because I played safety. And, I played a combination of free and strong safety, but I played strong safety most of the times. And I was guarding the tight end, one of the fastest guys in the state of Florida coming out of high school in track and field. And I'm guarding tight ends all the time. So it's like taking candy from a baby. And so everybody in the nation recruited me. And my senior year, we were 13-0, and we lost the state title game by 1 point to Panama City Bay High.
Do you still remember that game, though?
Like it was last night. And so, and matter of fact, Clint, I've had dreams of changing the game. This is no joke. I've had literally dreams while I'm asleep, and the outcome is different.
Were you the hero in the dream?
Hero. Absolutely. So anyway, we lost that game. But after that game, I took my first college visit. We played the title game in Ocala, Florida, against Bay High. And we drove, me and my parents, my mom and dad, we drove to Tallahassee to meet Coach Bowden on an unofficial visit. It wasn't an official visit. School was out at Florida State, so I didn't get a chance to go see a game or anything like that. My high school coach did a great thing for me, and I really believe that this was a great thing for me. He didn't allow me to go on recruiting trips during the season. He wouldn't let me do it. And I'm glad he didn't, because, see, sometimes, you can get Hollywood traveling all over the country, and all these big schools are coming at you and, telling you, we want you, all this kind of stuff. I'm so glad now that he didn't allow that to happen. He wanted us to focus on the task at hand. So anyway, I go and visit. And so on the visit, the only jacket I had to my name was a high school letterman jacket. So I'm in Tallahassee, and the recruiter told me, he said, now, Bobby, when you go in the room with Coach Bowden, don't take your jacket off. And that was kind of odd to me. I go, why can't I take my jacket off, right? So I go in there, and Coach Bowden's got the heater on and everything in the room, and I'm sweating like a dog, but I keep hearing the coach say, don't take the jacket off. So I'm in there sweating, and I'm not taking my jacket off. Well, to make a long story short, they told Coach Bowden I weighed 170 pounds. When actually I only weighed 145 pounds my senior year in high school. All right. And so, I had no idea what was going on until later, after I had got to Florida State and I made the team and all that kind of stuff, and played good as a freshman. There was some arguments at night with Coach Bowden with the coaching staff. I thought y'all said he was 170 pounds because in college and in the NFL you have to weigh in before practice and you have to weigh out. So imagine a kid weighing 145 pounds. He weigh in. I weigh in 145. Get on the scale, put my number down. Then after practice, I lose 10, 12 pounds of water weight.
Yeah.
That don't look good. And so, there was some beef up in the offices that night about that. But the thing that changed all that, Clint, was one day, the first week of practice, we had a great tight end, and I knocked him unconscious. I knocked him out, right? And I'll never forget that night, I went to the mess hall to eat dinner, and the captain of the team stood up when I was walking with the freshmen and said, Butler, you sit with us tonight. And the rest is history.
There you go.
Even as a freshman, I played a lot, and made some crucial plays as a freshman, and the rest is history.
Well, and too though, I'm sure they got you on a weight program and they started working on you, right?
Well, let me say this. The only thing we had at Florida State was we had a great dining hall, man. We had the best food. A lot of guys, decided to come to Florida State because of the food, and we didn't eat with the student body. We had our own, the football team, we had our own dining hall, and I'm telling you, some of the best food in the world. And my roommate, that was the founding factor in him going to Florida State, a guy named Walter Carter from Richmond, Virginia. He asked him, he said, y'all eat like this just during the season, right? Because most teams eat better during the season.
Yeah.
They said, no, we eat like this year round. He said, okay, it's a done deal. Where can I sign?
That's a decision that young people make too. I mean, when you're young.
It sounds just like a young guy, right?
Yeah. Is it pizza and spaghetti all the time? Is that
yeah, exactly, right?
What's it like? Because we're not going to keep you. I'm not going to make this an hour-long thing, but tell me though, as fast as you can, or whatever the most important part is, playing for Coach Bowden.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of coach was he? How much was he a factor in you going there? And, what kind of relationship did you have afterwards?
Well, I'm going to say this. The guy who was he was a graduate assistant at the time at Florida State, but he was one of my high school coaches as a 10th grader in high school. He went to Florida State, but he didn't finish his degree. He was coaching a little bit in high school. And then he left after my junior year and became a graduate assistant at Florida State. And so I love that guy. And so his name was Steve Harton. He just passed a couple months ago. But anyway, he was the one recruiting me. But that morning, Clint, when I sat down and talked with Coach Bowden, I can never forget it. I remember like it was yesterday. I can't really tell you what the pull was in that meeting, right? But when I look back and I evaluate it now, he was so much like my father. My father's a pastor. My father, I was raised in the church, and just the vibe. And my dad's a funny guy, right? And so Coach Bowden's a funny guy,
right?
And so in the meeting, I never forget. And think about this now. When I went there was no hoopla. I went from a hotel. I went to his office with my parents. And after 30 minutes, I walked out of the office and I told my mama this: I'm playing for that dude right there. And my mom told me, you can't make that decision now. You got all these trips you got to take. I said, Mom, I'm telling you right now. All right. So after that meeting, now remember, no hoopla.
Right.
It was just Coach Bowden and my family. And so then I was introduced to a guy after that point named Ivory Joe Hunter, who played cornerback, and he was from Tallahassee. And so at that time, the whole student body was at home. They were out for the holidays. And he was there, and he showed me around. He showed me around to an empty campus. So remember, I didn't get all the fluff.
Right.
And I really liked Ivory Joe, met his parents, and they were so much like my people. And we had a good time with his roommate and his girlfriend, just hanging out in the room with no hoopla. I was thoroughly convinced, Clint, going back to the Delray Beach, that I was going to play for Coach Bowden. But my mom had a different motive, and so my mom wanted me to play quarterback at Alabama. Okay.
Hold on one second, real quick. Roll Tide. Continue on, sir.
So Alabama was recruiting me to play quarterback. Now you remember the offense that Alabama ran was a wishbone.
Yep.
And I'm gonna tell you, it was an insult to me that the only few teams that recruited me were wishbone and one veer team. And I didn't run an option in high school, man. We didn't run an option.
Well, you had two good running backs in high school, didn't you?
We had two great running backs. We ran the wing tee, double wing, two tights. Every now and then we'll flex the tight ends, but everything was motion. It was the old Notre Dame Ara Parseguin motion offense, wing tee offense. But out of that, we ran bootlegs, and with my speed, and you couldn't contain me. All right, and so, but my whole deal was to prove to the world I was a real quarterback. I was going to throw the ball before I ran the ball.
Yeah.
All right. So my goal was to throw more touchdowns than run touchdowns, to be honest with you. And I did quite well at that. So anyway, my mom had that idea. I was the first African-American quarterback to play at my high school. We had a few that played on the team, but they never played. They were on the bench.
Right.
But I was the only one to play. And so I guess in her mind, she had to say, oh, my son can do that. And I'm going like, I'm not going to Alabama to be the first black anything, to be honest with you, Mom. I'm not doing that, right? So what happened, Clint? I went on a trip to Michigan State in East Lansing, January of 1977.
It's a little cold in January.
Right. Remember, I just told you I only had one jacket to my name. I had a high school letterman jacket. It's the only thing I had. And so in January of 1977, I flew with a bunch of buddies from Boca High School and my good friend John Swain from Miami. We flew up to East Lansing, Michigan State. And the coaches came and got us from there. Snow was on the ground everywhere. I've never seen snow before in my life. Snow was on the ground everywhere. So the coaches got us and took us straight to the stadium. And we're up in the press box and I'm cold. Inside I'm cold. I got this little jacket. And they kept saying, man, we could put 100,000 people in this stadium. I couldn't hear nothing that they were saying, to be honest with you, Clint. All I could see was that white powder on the field, all in the stands. I go, I can't do this. And so it was a great trip. I mean, I had a good time. I met Magic Johnson there. Magic Johnson and I are in the same class. They were recruiting him to play basketball out of Everett High School in Michigan. And I met him, and it was a good trip. But when I came back, this is what I told my mother. I said, Mom, I'm letting all the guys on the basketball team down. I'm not traveling anymore. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to play for Coach Bowden at Florida State.
Well, I think you and Magic both made the right decision.
We both made the right decision.
It paid out. It paid off. All right, so you go to Florida State, and you do well there, and then I want to kind of transition into draft.
Okay.
Getting drafted. You were drafted first round, correct?
Mm-hmm.
1981.
1981.
1981.
Mm-hmm.
And draft now, because if you're 40 years old or younger, the draft is this big. It's 3 days of TV. I had Gerald Riggs on a podcast a couple times, and you played with Gerald.
I played with Gerald.
The draft back then was just a little different, wasn't it?
Well, let me tell you how I experienced the draft. It was in my wife's apartment. I went to her apartment to see the draft. I wanted to get away from the football complex, right?
Right.
Because I know everybody be come knock on the doors and my boys and football. So I went to her apartment and started watching it. The draft came on at 8 a.m. in the morning, by the way.
Was it a Saturday or was it a weekday? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Because it didn't have the prime time.
It didn't have prime time anything. And so I'm sitting there and I'm at her place and there was a reporter that met us there. And so we're just watching. So everybody's predicting that I'm going first round. But my experience had been, 4 years at Florida State, a lot of my buddies were told that they were going to get drafted in a certain place and they all got their heart broke. And so my whole deal was, yeah, I know what they're saying first round, but as long as I go in the top 3 rounds, I'm good. That's good. If I can go in there. And so lo and behold, that day I get up and we watch it. The first round takes forever. So I get a phone call. And it wasn't from the Atlanta Falcons. It was from the Dallas Cowboys saying that if I'm available, they're going to take me. Now, I got to tell you, I grew up a Cowboy fan. I grew up a Roger Staubach's my man.
How'd you grow up a Cowboys fan down there in the Dolphin world?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not going to go into it. I'll talk to you after, off the screen about the Dolphins.
We might have to get you back on about that one.
No, I can't say that. I won't do that. But you and I can talk about it. But I love Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes is from Jacksonville, Florida. He played college football at Florida A&M. He's the fastest human alive.
Yeah.
And so I followed him. And then so when I started watching him, I started watching Roger Staubach, the way he scrambled, the way he ran around, just like I used to do when I was a kid, right? So I love Roger Staubach and I love Fran Tarkenton as NFL quarterbacks. And the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls. So it was easy to follow them.
Right.
So I love them. So, but anyway, they didn't take me. The Falcons gave me a call, and they had the pick right before Dallas, and so I went to Atlanta, and I was happy to go to Atlanta because I don't know if you remember Buddy's rookie year in 1980. They were 12-4, and I'm thinking as a little cocky little cornerback, 155 pounds at that time. All they need is me to take them to the promised land. Right?
Well, okay, yeah, of course. My question is, what did you weigh when you were drafted? Were you still 145 pounds?
155. I gained 10 pounds in college.
Look at you, man.
Yeah,
that's a lot of protein.
Here's the thing. Here's one of the things that I had going for me. I was the fastest guy in the 40 in the draft in 1981. I was a track All-American at Florida State, and so even though I was small, I can run like a deer. The bump and run rule changed. Mel Blount changed the game at corner in the NFL. And he was just murdering guys down the field because, Mel Blount was 6'4", 220, playing left corner. So they changed the bump and run rule, and then all of a sudden guys like me became a commodity. We need a guy who can jam one time and can run with these guys down the field. And so, all of a sudden, guys like a year before me, you got guys 5'10", 5'11", 180 pounds playing corner.
Well, the game changes, and you know it better than I do, but the game changes with the coaching. So, like, there's seasons where it's more run, or it's more pass. There's defenses that are developed with different setups, and you just happen to catch it at the right time too.
I did for myself.
And do you think though playing the game as a quarterback, as long as you did, helped you because you saw the field from a defensive side as the quarterback?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even this day when I watch a football game, I still look at it from a quarterback's perspective. And so, knowing what they do, understanding route combinations, understand the whole deal, if you're on a two receiver side, if you're playing zone, if you can look in at that second receiver and know what he's doing, exactly what the outside guy is doing.
Yeah.
Right? I know what the quarterback is reading when he sees a safety. When the middle field is zero, there's no free safety, or when there's a free safety in the hole, he's thinking a certain thing. Yeah, that helped me tremendously. And I'll be honest with you, it helped me play 12 years in the league because my IQ was so much higher than most guys. Because it came to a point in the NFL, Clint, where I couldn't run anymore. And so when that got to that point, man, I probably played another 4 years, and you could not get by me because I understood pattern recognitions.
Yeah.
And what went together. And I studied tape. When I tell you I became a student of the game in 1983, my third year in the league, I met the greatest cornerback, in my opinion, at the time, was Lem Barney, the old Detroit Lion. And I had a cousin who played for the Falcons, by the way, named Cannonball Jim Butler. And he was retired, of course, then, but he had a jazz club in Atlanta. And I just so happened to be in the club one night. And Lem Barney was in the club. And so Lem Barney said, man, I watch you play, man. You can cover. Man, Lem Barney's watching me play. I can't tell you what that made me felt like, right?
Yeah.
I was excited. I said, yeah. I said, okay. So he asked me. He said, well, tell me how you study tape. And it's almost like I had my chest stuck out like this, Clint. I said, I don't study tape. Bro, I'm just good. When I tell you the great Lem Barney went off on me as if I was his son.
Really?
And took me in the back and we went in Cannonball's office and sat me down that night in the nightclub and started telling me, this is what you got to do. Right now, all right, you're good because you're playing on your athletic ability. He said, you're not going to always be that athletic. He said, trust me. And he was so right about that. So I learned how to study tape. And then being a quarterback, on top of studying the tape, it made my life so easy. I mean, in my last year, I promise you, I couldn't run a 4.640. I promise you. I couldn't run a 4.640. But you could not beat me on a deep route, and I pretty much know where the receiver was going 90% of the time.
Well, and if you study tape like that, it allows you to relax a little bit, and then your athleticism actually pays off. Because you know this way better. But if you're a good athlete, but you don't know the game, you're always playing catch up. You're
playing catch up. It does you no good.
All right, so go ahead.
And you understand that there are a lot of great athletes in the National Football League.
Really?
And I'll say this, and I'm going to say this, Clint. I'm going to say this. You know, because as you're in high school, you're in South Florida now. I'm just telling you, you got a lot of athletes. And I told you this before we started. Nobody would have picked me as a guy that played in the NFL when they saw me playing high school, even though I was a great high school player, because I was so small. Right? And so that was the negative I had. And then I was a quarterback. They didn't see me on TV playing quarterback. There was no hope for me. James Harris was the only quarterback playing in the National Football League at the time, black quarterback, right? And then, of course, Doug Williams came and, and things like that. But, they didn't see a lot of me. So there was no hope for me. But as you go up, the athleticism, it just gets bigger and bigger. And so in the NFL, I say this about the NFL, or I say this about professional sports in general. Everybody who's playing professional sports is pretty much a freak in some kind of way from an athletic standpoint.
Yeah. Well, they're the best of the best.
I mean, it's the best of the best. And so somebody is just geared different, in that game. It's just a game of freaks, in my opinion.
Well, I got a couple questions, and I promise I wouldn't keep you too long, but the athletes change nowadays too, though. I mean, they're bigger and I mean, you've got people now running the 40 that you and Deion stuff did that are 6'2", 220.
Absolutely. But the training is different. So the science in the game has evolved. And so we didn't know how to do certain things. I mean, I did everything I could to get big in the weight room. I worked hard.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get so big, right?
Yeah. Well, now they've got people that tell you what to eat, when to eat it.
The science of the game.
Yeah.
And so even from a training standpoint, I see guys, when they're 32 still can run like a deer. See, I didn't have that training. I was doing what I did wrong. Instead of continuing to do track training on my own, I was doing weightlifting. So my weightlifting got off the charts as a little guy. I can bench, 325 for a max, and I can move 225, 15, 16 reps, right?
Right.
But that was the only thing I was tested on. And I can cover you, and I was smart, but from a science standpoint, my generation is way behind the game. Today's athlete, man, they're so far advanced, and it's amazing.
Well, in order to keep my word and not keep you super long, I'd love to have you back on in a week or two to have different conversations. I think they'd be fun, but I got to ask you some fan questions.
Go ahead.
This is the fan questions.
I'm good with it.
And a real shout out to David Israel, who's a huge Dolphins fan. He goes, I want to know about the Dolphins. No, sir, you cannot know about the Dolphins. I can't leak that info. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I've heard Bobby Butler's name. Where did I hear him from? You played in an era where the receiving core, when you were in the NFL, was through the roof. I mean, and I say that because that's when I was watching it, right? Whenever you're watching it, it's, of course, the best era.
It's the best era, right?
But I mean, you played in an era with some of the best receivers of all time. Mm-hmm. And so now I've got to ask the fan questions. Who was some of the ones that were the hardest to cover? Because we immediately go to the Jerry Rices or the Steve Largents, all these different names. Mm-hmm. But I found out through talking with Buddy and Gerald, usually every athlete has somebody that you have their number and they have yours.
Absolutely.
So who had yours and whose did you have?
Well, I had Jerry Rice's number.
Very few people can say that, sir.
Right. I matched up so well against him. And back then we were in the same division with them. We played him twice a year. Right. Now, he scored 2 touchdowns on me and I guess 10 starts against Jerry Rice. He caught 2 touchdown passes on me. But I did really well against him. The guy who just, my goodness, I couldn't do anything with this guy.
You know what's funny real quick? You didn't smile when you talked about Jerry, but you're smiling on this one.
Well, what can I say? I mean, one of the things I can say, I was faster than most receivers that I faced, even the fast ones, right? But this guy, and thank God we're not in the same division. Thank God that we didn't play them that often, but we always we invited them to our training camp in Swanee, the Miami Dolphins, and they had a little guy named Mark Clayton.
Oh yeah,
and I'm gonna tell you that little
Clayton is super duper.
Well, I had no problem with Duper,
Uh-huh.
but Clayton was a whole different animal because he was a guy that was quicker than me. So I get up on him, bump and run on the line of scrimmage, and he started shaking, and I'm telling you, that dude was like lightning quick. But my deal was also that if you shook me, I can recover to get there to make the play.
Right.
But the problem with Mark Clayton was he'll shake me, and there'll be some separation. I can catch up to him, but that monster who was throwing the ball behind the center was a whole nother animal. And so Marino was throwing the ball in there like a god doggone bullet blazer. And so it didn't help. And so that was not that guy, Mark Clayton was the guy.
How about trash talker? Who was the best trash talker?
From a receiver standpoint?
Yeah. Or anybody you played with. I don't know. Who's the one that tried to get in your head the most?
Well, receivers don't do that, especially in our day. In my day, there was no rules. We can always get them.
Yeah.
And so I hate to say it that way. The game was a game. And, we never tried to ruin anybody's career, but I wanted you to feel it.
Yeah.
And so we didn't mind knocking you out the game. The thing back then was knockouts, fans don't get mad with me. It was just the era I played in.
Yeah.
Big hits were the thing. And so, when you saw my teammate Kenny Johnson knock out Ronaldo Nehemiah, I mean, he was on the field unconscious for like 20 minutes, right? When you see hits like that, Scott Case hitting Freddie Solomon.
Scott Case could hit too, man.
Oh, Scott Case was a real deal.
He
knocked the guy out, So that was part of the deal back then. I mean, so receivers didn't say much. Now, my whole deal was I don't really consider myself a trash talker, but I consider myself a psychologist in the game. So I wanted to get in your head. And if you caught a ball on me, then I start talking. If you catch a ball on me and you get up and start doing something, I'll go up to you and say, that's the last ball you're catching today, and I'll tighten it up and I'll get more aggressive, right?
Yeah.
It turns up the dial in me.
Well,
I really start to play.
Well, I think too, the way the game's set up today, it's set up a little more to favor the offense. I mean, you can't really.
Well, in the history of the game, when you think about it, I don't remember in my 12-year career, there was never a rule to change to help the defensive side of the ball. Every year they came with new rules. It was always to enhance offensive play. Why? Because the fans want to see touchdowns. They want to see scoring. They want to see the ball move.
Right.
In my 12 years, I can't speak for after that, they had never had a change to help the defensive side of the ball.
Well, you played with some great guys too, and I'll end it with 2 questions. One is when Deion Sanders came on the scene, you were, and I say this to everybody, especially on the Falcons, speed-wise, you were the guy that could let people get by you because you said it, and you could make up that distance. Mm-hmm. Deion did that. He wanted the quarterback to look up and go, he's beat, because he's going to make up the distance. How did he change the dynamic, and just your take on that real quick?
Well, Deion Sanders, I would say today, is the greatest ever played a game at the cornerback position. When he came in, the thing I love about Deion, real quick, let me say this about Deion. He was a student of the game. He wasn't just a freakish athlete. He studied the game. I taught him everything I knew as far as studying the game. But he wanted to pick up everything he could. He was like a sponge, man. I'm telling you, he was picking it up. And, we spent countless amount of time away from team meetings studying tape together and, talking about these offensive coordinators, because, I taught them to keep a file of offensive coordinators because they do get fired and end up in different places. And, and so when he leaves, the Indianapolis Colts and he ends up in Buffalo, guess what? He's got the same playbook.
Yep.
and so we had notebooks that we kept. He changed the game for me because at that time it was my 9th year in the league, and I was just an old veteran, Clinton, just going to work. I mean, I wasn't excited anymore about the game. I did my job, I had no emotion. But the very first game he showed up in, and he scored that punt return touchdown, it lit up everybody. And I'll never forget, I threw my hands up and I run the field and jump up. It changed the way I played. It brought back the emotion. It brought back the excitement having somebody like him on the team. It was awesome.
I think people forget the first time he was kicked that punt, I think he fumbled it.
He fumbled it. He did. He fumbled the first one and fell on it. And then they kicked him a second one. He fumbled that one, but he picked it up and he scored.
Yep.
So he dropped it, but it bounced right to him. And the rest.
And he ran backwards. He did something you're not supposed to do.
He ran backwards. Yeah. But see, one of the things that you have to always realize, and I say this to coaching all the time, if you got an athlete, let him be an athlete. Don't overcoach the guy. Let him play ball.
Well, a life after the NFL, I've had a longer conversation with Gerald Riggs and with Buddy. Life after the NFL or after pro sports period is difficult because most of the time, I think the NFL average career is 3 to 5 years, something like that.
3.5.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're in your mid-20s, late 20s,
right.
And you're retired. And you may have a little money. I'm not sure what you did immediately, but I know you now are part of the Kids and Pros football camps.
Yes.
And just with Buddy and with Robert Moore, if you don't mind, let's wrap it up with you giving us the 30, 40 second of why and what is that camp?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Anytime I can inspire kids and help kids, that's what I want to sign up for. Because as a young 9-year-old, I was inspired by Gail Sayers. And then I became inspired by a local high school quarterback named Anthony Penn, who played at Carver High School in Delray Beach. And I wanted to be just like him. So I know kids look up to us, guys who've made it, guys who've played. And if I can give them something back to help them, to inspire them, every kid that comes to a camp won't be a professional football player, but I can inspire them in life in general. And that's what I want to do. And so that's what we do. We're in front of kids all the time. I think we have, to this date, have trained over 62,000 kids. All right. That's incredible. And some of those kids are playing the NFL today. And, some of them had great college careers. Some of them had great high school careers. But our character principle piece, which to me is the most important part, if they can get some of those, 1 or 2 of those, and it stick with them for life, it can be life-changing, to a kid's life. And so I love Kids and Pros and what we do.
I will say this. We've done it here so long that the benefit to me is a kid that starts off coming to camp and he comes 5-6 years. He gets to know you coaches. He gets he looks forward to it. I have gotten several messages from mothers who've said my kid has gone on to play Division I college football. He still remembers it, or they'll just get home and be excited because they got to go out and play.
Go out and play. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
learn something.
You can't beat that. And when you start thinking about school and high schools and things like that now, they're taking phys ed out of the school, physical education. And kids with all the gadgets they have now, they don't go outside and play. And so when we get out there, man, for me, I'm having a blast when I'm out
coaching though. You're coaching.
I'm coaching. I'm in the sun. I'm from South Florida, bro. The sun is my best friend. So I'm having a good time when I'm out with kids, and I'm reliving those things and teaching them the things that I know.
When we grew up, you could tell where all your friends were by where all the bicycles were, what house they were at.
That's right.
That's where you went. You took your bike and went there. Hey, listen, I could have 5 or 6 more conversations with you about life and football, but I've already kept you about 10 to 15 minutes longer than I committed to, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But I appreciate you taking the time to come on, sir.
Hey, Clayton, my pleasure, man. Anytime.
No problem. Maybe we can do this again. We'll get Buddy and Gerald on with us.
Oh man, we won't do that but laugh the whole,
and we'll just we'll threaten to tell all the locker room stories, but we won't. It'll be fun though.
I love it.
Thank you, Bobby.
Hey, thanks, Flint.
Yes, sir. Have a good day. Thank y'all for watching. See you later.